For our final clip, we follow a guy named Josh Flatch as he explores a prison that locals believe is haunted. He's got a few friends with him as they make their way through the cells and various areas of the building. But when Josh decides to head upstairs alone to investigate the upper cell block, things take a seriously unsettling turn. See for yourself.
I may or may not have climbed up because there's no stairs.
As he reaches the very last cell, the unmistakable outline of a figure becomes visible inside. Josh was visibly rattled the moment he spotted that dark shape just standing there. Neither he nor anyone in his group can explain what he encountered, yet they're all convinced something supernatural was responsible. The leading theory is that the spirit of a former inmate made itself known on camera. But the question remains, what exactly was it that Josh came face to face with inside that jail cell? Some hauntings begin with shadows, others with whispers. But for TikTok creator Alexis Laquica, everything started with a knock. It's 3 a.m. when he hears tapping against his window. He pulls back the curtain. Nothing there. Seconds later, the same sound comes from his front door. He swings it open. Still nothing. No footsteps, no movement, not even a breeze. A few hours later, the scratching comes back. He hits record. The sound is sharp and deliberate, like something dragging claws across wood. But once again, the moment he opens the door, the noise cuts out completely. 6 days go by. 3:22 a.m. Same knock, same door, same empty porch. Another week passes and the knocking is back. He checks every window, finds nothing outside. But when he steps back into the house and takes a photo, what shows up in that image is the stuff of nightmares. There, just beyond his window, is a figure staring directly in, face pale, body rigid. The kind of presence you don't just notice, you feel it before your eyes even land on it. A few days later, the knocks return, but something has shifted. When he opens the door this time, a strange, bent, flexible branch is sitting on the doorstep. Confused, he picks it up, throws it in the trash, and moves on. But later that same night, a new sound rattles the door. A hard, whipping noise, repetitive and forceful, like someone beating the wood with something. He opens the door, and there it is again, that same branch lying on the ground, as though it had just been used to strike the door. And this is the point where old folklore starts to bleed into the picture. In traditional European witch lore, a watching crone, a cursed branch, and a lurking cat are well-known signs of a witch marking a home. The knocking at windows and doors is said to be a way of testing boundaries. The branch, a ritual instrument. The cat, a familiar. The old woman, the witch herself. Once the knocking starts, the old stories warn that the witch will find a way inside one way or another. Sure enough, Alexis films his window again not long after, and this time, a cat is perched outside, staring straight at him, unblinking, perfectly still. Hours later, he picks up sounds coming from inside the hallway. Whatever this is, it's no longer standing outside. 20 days after that, Alexis posts 2 more videos, and now it's clear that whatever was knocking has crossed the threshold. The activity is stronger, more direct, and no longer content to wait at the door.
Esta es la segunda vez que hace que me levante a cerrar la regadera.
Whether this was a person, a spirit, or something older following a pattern laid down centuries ago in folklore, every single sign points in the same direction. Something found his home, tested his door, and eventually decided to walk through it. On November 3rd, 2015, a deeply unsettling piece of footage was captured in Texas by an auto mechanic who filmed it on his cell phone while making his way back to town from his shop on foot. He claims that as he traveled along this stretch of road, he got the sudden, overwhelming sensation that something was trailing behind him. To protect himself, he switched on his phone's camera and kept it rolling as he continued walking. And what it picked up stopped him cold. The moment he swings the camera around and zooms in, a bizarre and deeply disturbing grey figure becomes unmistakably visible, crouched near the base of a tree. It bears no resemblance to a human being, nor does it match any recognizable creature. Certain viewers have argued it could simply be a person down on all fours, using their hands for balance. However, according to the original description posted with the footage, the man behind the camera is absolutely adamant that it was no human. His reasoning? Within just a few seconds of him watching it, the figure vanished silently into the tree line, and he couldn't help but ask himself, what ordinary person would lurk out there in the dark just to frighten a random stranger passing by? So what exactly was it? Someone playing games or something far darker altogether? On May 30th, 2026, an Uber Eats driver was out on a delivery run when he pulled up to the address and discovered the entire property was completely inaccessible. Both the front and rear entrances were sealed shut, leaving him no way to get to the door. He decided to leave the order by the front gate, then stepped around the corner to hang back and see what would unfold.
अभी तक पता नहीं आपको नजर आ रहा है कि नहीं। अब क्या किया जाए, कुछ समझ से बाहर है। क्या करूं, मैं घर के पास जाऊं? What?
He glanced away toward his bike for just a moment, and when he looked back, the bag had completely vanished. No sign of anyone in sight. Puzzled, he returned to the gate convinced that something on the other side of it had taken the food.
Yeah, I saw you just pick up the bag from here. I know you exist, and I know you are living here. I'm here just to talk to you, not to harm you. Can you give me any sign so I know that you're here, or any other type of...
The property is supposedly vacant, and he's now pretty certain that whatever placed that order was already lurking inside. But as always, drop your thoughts in the comments and let me know what you make of it. It's late at night when Sarai is fast asleep. Bassard's daughter Regina is suddenly jolted awake by what sounds like a cat, the noise appearing to come from somewhere inside the closet nearby. She pulls out her phone and starts filming as she goes to investigate. The family doesn't own any pets, which makes the whole situation deeply unsettling on its own. But what unfolds a moment later is when things shift from strange to outright frightening. See for yourself.
Están empezando a escuchar ruidos. Escuché como un gato, como dos gatos que se estuvieran peleando dentro. Oh, se escucha mucho. Su hijo se está abriendo el closet. Voy a checar porque parecen gatos.
A ghostly pale face becomes visible through the closet gap, staring out at her before slowly retreating into the darkness. The experience shook her to her core, but this was only the start, because over the following nights, the family kept noticing something concealing itself in the shadowy corners throughout the house. Whatever it was seemed to deliberately avoid being caught, as though it could melt right into the dark. Then one night, both Sarai and her daughter hear strange sounds coming from the kitchen and head in together to find the source.
Se movió. Vamos. No, vamos, como chingos que no. Vamos. Sin dejar de ver. Aquí se movió. Aquí estaba.
No manches,
Ay, no hay nada, Regina.
se desapareció, ¿qué?
No sé.
No manches, ma.
Ya no hay nada.
The very next evening, the cat-like noises return once more, and the two of them go to face it head-on.
Fuera. Estamos viéndolo. ¿Quién eres? Tú no eres un gato.
Ay, ¿qué es eso?
Vete de aquí, ¿quién eres?
¿Qué es eso?
¿Quién eres? Te estoy grabando. ¿Quién eres? ¿Por qué estás aquí en mi casa? Tú no eres un gato. Tú no eres un gato. Te ordeno que te vayas de mi casa. ¡Ay! No manches. ¿Qué es eso, Regina? Se abrió la puerta. Uy, güey. Se me abrió la puerta. Vámonos. Pues, Regina, están tocando. Préndelo. Ya le hablé a la policía. Y ahorita va a venir. Tráeme un palo, Regina. Tráeme algo. Dámelo. Va a venir ahorita la policía, corre. ¿A qué estás molestando aquí? Ya te habías ido. ¿Qué quieres? ¿A quién quieres?
Something is clearly visible, moving through the darkened room, producing those eerie cat sounds. Fearing for their well-being, Sarai contacts the police, who show up and sweep the entire property without finding anything unusual. From that point forward, whatever had been tormenting them seemed to vanish entirely. Sarai and her daughter are convinced they were dealing with some kind of witch, but as with so many of these cases, the truth remains unknown. The following clip was posted to TikTok by a woman named Jessie, a mum who typically fills her account with fun, feel-good content. But at some point, she uploaded something that stood out in a very unsettling way, baby monitor footage that genuinely disturbed a large portion of her audience. In the caption, she described how late one night, her son was resting quietly in his crib when he suddenly broke into uncontrollable crying. Worried, she pulled up the baby monitor feed, and this is what the camera had recorded. You can clearly see something appear to grab his leg and drag it, and his reaction makes it obvious that whatever happened genuinely terrified him. Once the clip went live, a wave of concerned viewers flooded the comments, urging her not to let him sleep alone in a separate room, especially given what had just unfolded. So where do you stand on this one? Is this a genuine paranormal encounter, or is there a more grounded explanation hiding in plain sight? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. You're watching The Exact Animal, a channel where investigators Jeff, Phil, and Mark set out to look into Fiona's tea room, a building first constructed in the 1600s and the oldest standing structure in the area. It passed through the hands of many different owners over the centuries before eventually settling into its current life as a cozy spot to enjoy a warm drink and something to eat. But not long after the doors opened to the public, unsettling things started occurring. Most mornings, Fiona arrives to find objects scattered across the floor as if something had been active overnight. On one occasion, a camera was left running inside the shop, and what it recorded was difficult to explain. A large dark mass hovering in the middle of the room, a recurring apparition moving straight through the furniture, specifically the figure of an elderly woman in a Victorian-era dress, the shadowy silhouette of a male figure, and the sounds of ghostly children have reportedly been heard dashing about the place. Before diving into their investigation, the team positioned several static cameras throughout the building, then cleared out and let it sit overnight. When they returned the following morning and reviewed the footage, the ground floor camera had picked something up. Decide for yourself what you make of this. With the evidence already stacking up, they were eager to get things underway, but almost immediately after starting, something stopped them cold.
Just to the right of me here is a kitchen, and they say a lot happens in here too. It's only a small kitchen, but things get moved and thrown around. So, okay, I've got the digital recorder running.
Someone's coming down those stairs at next door. What?
Oh my God. Shh.
That's the stairs where we...
Shh. Shh. Everyone stand still.
That was loud.
Okay, just to let you all know, we are taking you to this area.
There's a light that's going on and off outside.
So, that's a motion light.
Yeah.
Someone's coming down those stairs at next door. What?
Oh my God.
That's the stairs where we...
A voice echoed down from the staircase above them, a voice that had absolutely no business being there, given that they were the only people with access to the building. The team moved quickly to check it out, but the stairs were completely deserted. Later into the night, Mark and Phil conducted a number of sessions that didn't yield much. However, the moment Jeff headed upstairs by himself, the energy in the building seemed to change. A male spirit known as Joe was said to haunt that particular space, and Jeff got his equipment running. It didn't take long at all before something responded.
So first of all, my name is Jeff. Is it possible you can shout out or speak into that device and tell me your name? I'm hearing banging. I heard 2 bangs. And I don't know where it come from. It seemed to come from back in the room behind me. I'm hearing banging. I heard 2 bangs. Joe, you worked on the railways, didn't you? What happened to you, Joe? What happened to you, Joe?
With something strange unfolding all around him, Jeff grew increasingly convinced that he was not the only presence in that room. After everything the 3 of them experienced that night, the team left with a firm belief that something genuinely paranormal calls Fiona's tea room home. Husband and wife, unsettled by strange and loud sounds coming from above their ceiling, head up to investigate with a camera rolling. Clearly on edge, the woman repeatedly urges her husband in Portuguese to be careful as they make their way through. Her anxiety turned out to be completely warranted, because what they find up there is anything but normal.
Não, tu não vais lá sozinho. Ai. Opa, olha, vai lá tu, toma, eu fico aqui, desculpa, não consigo, desculpa, eu estou cheia de medo a sério, vai lá tu, mas tem cuidado, tá bem? Olha aí, olha que estás a ouvir.
Caralho, se que é isto mesmo? Isso não, nada, está tudo bem. É? Nada.
Peraí, eu ajudo a descer. Olha, mas fecha, fecha.
The moment the man steps into the attic, a box suddenly tumbles down right behind him. As he turns around to get out, the footage captures something that will make your stomach drop. Is this a genuine spirit caught on film? Or could there be something even more chilling hiding in the shadows? That's for you to decide. A lone overnight worker at a sprawling department store had gotten accustomed to the odd sounds that crept in after midnight. On most nights, he'd brush it off, chalking it up to an aging building doing what old buildings do. But on this particular night, those sounds felt uncomfortably near. A creeping sense of dread came over him, so he grabbed his phone and hit record. As he made his way through the deserted aisles, see what his camera picked up.
I was making a video. It's been a couple days since I made the last one. I'm feeling good. That was... Yo! Hello?
A small, dark figure, no bigger than a young child, materialized silently behind him. It held perfectly still for just a moment before the footage abruptly cut out. Even now, people who've seen the clip can't agree. Was this some kind of supernatural presence, or just a chilling trick of the light caught on film? A deeply moving scene from a farewell ceremony went viral after being shared online in October 2023. According to those involved, the family had come together at the edge of a lake to release the ashes of their recently departed mother. Initially, the whole thing played out in a calm and solemn way.
That's enough. No.
Then something unexpected caught everyone's attention right there on the water's surface. See for yourself what unfolded.
She's saying something long. L-O-V-E.
Once the ashes settled onto the lake, they gradually drifted into a formation that looked remarkably like the word love. The family was left nearly at a loss for words, with many of them feeling it could have been one last message sent from their mother on the other side. As the footage spread across the internet shortly after, all kinds of interpretations started pouring in. There were those who felt the shape had simply come together by chance, the result of natural water movement and the way the ashes happened to disperse across the surface. But for others, the whole moment carried far too much weight to be written off as a random coincidence. So where do you land on this one? Was it nothing more than a trick of nature? Or was it truly a final goodbye from a mother who had just left this world? What would you do if you suddenly found yourself face to face with something supernatural in the middle of a dark forest? That's the situation this man from Mexico says he lived through while out walking his two dogs one night. He claims he spotted a woman in white, bearing a striking resemblance to La Llorona, the weeping woman of Mexican folklore, a vengeful spirit believed to roam near bodies of water, wailing for her drowned children. What he managed to record that evening is genuinely disturbing, to say the least.
Oh shit. ¿Hay algo ahí? ¿Hay una persona ahí o qué es eso? Espérate, espérate. ¿Es una persona? ¡Thanos! ¿Qué es eso? Espérate, cálmate. ¡Thanos! ¡Quieto, Zeus! ¡Quieto! ¡Thanos! Oh, shit, ¿es una persona? ¡Aquí! ¡Aquí! ¡Thanos! ¡Aquí, Zeus! ¡Thanos! ¡Zeus! ¡Aquí! ¡Zeus, aquí! ¡Zeus! ¡Zeus! ¡Thanos! ¡Quieto! ¡Aquí! ¡Thanos! ¡Quieto! ¡Zeus! ¡Sit! ¡Sit! ¡Thanos! ¡Zeus! ¡Quieto! ¡Quieto! ¡Thanos! ¡Zeus! ¡Quieto! ¡Quieto! Oh, shit. ¡Quietos! ¡Quédense ahí! ¡Quieto ahí! ¡Cálmense! Shh. ¡Quietos! ¿Qué es eso? ¿Qué es eso?
See for yourself. Whatever he ran into out there is the stuff of pure nightmares. Sure, it might be an ordinary person, or it might be something else entirely. But the most unsettling part isn't what it is, it's how it behaves. His dogs are losing their minds, barking frantically and lunging forward, yet the figure moves along at a slow, steady pace, completely indifferent to the chaos around it. When you zoom in for a closer look, there's no face, no visible head, just an empty void, as though a white dress is drifting through the darkness all on its own. He later described hearing a faint, distant wailing, even though his camera failed to capture any sound. Whatever crossed his path that night, it left him shaken to his core. CCTV cameras have a habit of picking up things that simply defy explanation. That's precisely what Reddit user CarefulAbracoma364 believes went down at their father's workshop. They posted the footage to the R-Files Paranormal Encounters subreddit, hoping the community could shed some light on what the camera had captured. The workshop sits in an isolated spot, flanked by a road on one side and a set of railway tracks on the other. The father had originally set up the CCTV system to keep thieves and vandals away. Just like in the previous clip, these cameras are motion activated, only switching on when something passes through their field of view. Most nights, the footage amounts to nothing more than the odd car rolling by or a wandering animal. But late one night, at exactly 3:47 in the morning, one of those cameras caught something nobody could have anticipated. A figure dressed in a long white gown appears to stroll right past the lens. According to the OP, this figure then moves around the back of the workshop toward a fenced-off dead end. Beyond that fence, there's nothing but railway tracks, the road, and a vast, seemingly endless wall of forest. The camera never triggered again. Nothing returned. Whoever, or whatever, this was simply vanished into the darkness without a trace. What made it even more unsettling for the OP was just how isolated the area is. They describe it as almost completely silent after dark, with no pubs, restaurants, bars, houses, or shops anywhere in the vicinity. So what exactly would someone in a flowing white dress be doing wandering around out there in the dead of night? Given that the OP chose to share this on r/Sars Paranormal Encounters, it's pretty clear they have their suspicions about what this figure might be. But what's your take? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. This clip exploded across social media after being posted by a user going by HappyGPY, and it's not hard to see why. The footage comes from a Japanese street surveillance camera, and what it captures is genuinely unsettling. Pay close attention as a cyclist rounds the bend. Standing completely still at the edge of an alleyway is what appears to be a woman in white. The cyclist barely avoids crashing into her, visibly startled by her sudden presence. But here's where things take a truly strange turn. The moment he looks back over his shoulder, she's gone, completely vanished, as if she was never there at all. The comments section is split right down the middle. A portion of viewers are convinced this is a yurei, a figure rooted deep in Japanese folklore, typically described as a long, dark-haired woman draped in white, said to haunt locations tied to suffering or unfinished business from her former life. If those people are right, something terrible may have once happened on that very street, binding this restless soul to the spot forever. So the real question is, what would you do if you came face to face with something like that? A man ventured into the woods, and what he encountered there would shake him to his core. The footage you're about to see was captured by a hiker who decided to camp deep within an isolated stretch of forest. Upon making his way through the trees, he stumbled across a cluster of old, derelict structures and pulled out his camera to document what he'd found. It wasn't until several days later, when he sat down to go through everything he'd filmed out there, that the true horror set in. Buried in the footage was something deeply disturbing, something he had been completely unaware of in the moment. And this is that recording. Within the walls of the crumbling structure, a pale, almost translucent figure can be spotted in motion. It appears to take the form of an unusually tall woman with long, dark hair trailing behind her. The man claims he has absolutely no explanation for what this entity could be or where it came from. Many who have seen the clip believe the figure is not of this world, and that the decaying building itself may be home to something supernatural. So, Eliana Acevedo was someone who had always kept her social media presence fun and upbeat, sharing cheerful glimpses into her everyday life, until one particular recording changed everything in the most unsettling way imaginable. The footage shows a young girl in her bedroom calling out to what seems to be her pet. Everything looks completely ordinary at first, right up until something deeply chilling unfolds.
Sky! Cadê Sky? Meu Deus! Meu Deus, o que é isso? Parece o povo. Mãe? Mãe? Ai, meu Deus! Mãe! Tu não tava aqui ainda, gorinha? Tu tava sim! Eu te vi aqui.
Without any warning, a mysterious figure materializes right next to the bed. Initially, the girl figures it's probably just her mum messing with her, trying to get a scare out of her. But within seconds, everything shifts. The figure vanishes into thin air before her eyes, and almost immediately after, her mother steps into the room, confused, completely oblivious to what had just taken place. That's the exact moment the girl understands that whatever had been standing there was definitely not her mum. Once the footage spread across the internet, a wave of viewers became convinced she had recorded what online communities often call a mimic, a supposed entity believed to replicate the look and behavior of people close to its target in order to lure them in. The response grew so overwhelming that Eliana eventually posted a follow-up video to address the situation.
Gente, não tem como aquela coisa ter se escondido. A cama é box. Não cabe nada aqui, olha. Só tem o fio da extensão ali passando. Não dá uma...
In that second recording, she walks through the entire room and argues that it would have been virtually impossible for any person to conceal themselves in that space undetected. She maintains that even now, she has no logical explanation for what showed up beside her bed that night. But that raises the question, do you think there's a reasonable answer behind all of this? Or was that figure genuinely attempting to impersonate the... Now this one was recorded over a dozen years ago on someone's phone held up to a CCTV monitor. So yes, the quality is absolutely terrible, but the footage was too unsettling to leave off the list. The location is the Ciudadela Plaza in Guadalajara, Mexico. Over the years, both employees and visitors at this plaza have reported all kinds of strange, inexplicable things happening there. Staff members say they frequently hear the sound of a child running and laughing in the middle of the night, and numerous shoppers claim to have spotted a small boy who simply vanished right in front of them. So one night, well after the plaza had closed, security guards notice a solitary little boy darting through the back corridors completely on his own. When plaza employees sit down to review the camera footage, they can hardly believe what they're looking at.
Ve que aquí se mete la pared. No, fíjate.
The child appears to pass straight through a locked, closed door in one of the hallways, possibly directly through the wall itself. A guard is then sent in to investigate and locate the boy, and that's when things take an even darker turn.
No, ahí se va a meter, espérate.
Adelante, chicos, déjalo en 9-1. Joder, para los 38 se acaba de hacer el número de pasajes de Edo Monti que cancelaron que hasta mañana a las 7.
Ay, no mames. No, ¿y sabes qué?
De esa manera. O sea, chicos, 9-1
The officer unlocks the door and steps inside, but the room is completely empty. However, the workers monitoring the footage are convinced they can see the little boy's head reappear right next to the guard. seemingly peering out from within the wall just above him. So is this the same ghostly child that Plaza visitors have been reporting for years? Drop your thoughts in the comments. To close out this terrifying compilation, we have a man lying in bed late at night who notices something deeply unsettling right next to him beneath the white duvet. Initially, it just appears to be an odd shape under the covers, but then he spots two pale hands gripping the edge from below. The fingers seem discolored, almost like they've been bruised. At that point, he already understands that whatever is beneath those sheets has no business being there. His breathing is unsteady and panicked as he slowly reaches across, knowing he has no choice but to look, even though every instinct is telling him not to. First come the hands, and then, as he peels the cover back and peers into the narrow gap between the mattress and the wall, something is already staring back at him. For just a fraction of a second, a pale and distorted face with wide dark eyes and tangled hair emerges from that gap, gazing straight into the camera before vanishing entirely. It doesn't lunge, it doesn't scurry away, it simply stares, as though it had been tucked in that space the whole time, waiting. A lot of viewers drew comparisons to the crawler, a pale humanoid creature frequently described in contemporary horror mythology as something that lurks in cramped, dark spaces before making itself known. Sure, skeptics will argue this was all set up, but the way that face materializes from such a tight space is more than enough to make you want to check the side of your own bed tonight. So just what exactly was hiding under those covers? I'll let you decide. In the pre-dawn hours of October 8th, 2016, at a residence on the rural edge of Boswell, Pennsylvania, a family stepped outside to discover their trash cans had been completely turned out, with rubbish strewn across the entire backyard. Given how close they lived to dense woodland, nocturnal animals raiding the garbage was hardly a rare occurrence. Worried the offender might be a black bear bulking up ahead of hibernation, the household decided to pull up the footage from their porch camera to figure out what had made the mess. What that camera had recorded, though, bore no resemblance to any black bear. For almost 2 solid minutes, a peculiar figure repeatedly edges out from behind cover before retreating again in a slow, deliberate pattern. Although most of its body remains concealed, the parts that are visible suggest something gaunt and long-limbed, with a pair of luminous white eyes, an appearance that many would associate with the cryptid commonly known as a brush crawler. It's genuinely unsettling footage, and the thought of something like that lurking just outside your home in the dead of night is more than enough to get under your skin. There are those who believe this could be a genuine encounter with an unidentified creature, pointing to the odd behavior and that eerie eye shine as evidence. Others have argued it was either staged or simply something ordinary caught from an unflattering angle, with the camera's poor low-light performance doing the rest of the work. Regardless of where you land on it, this is exactly the kind of clip that has you glancing over your shoulder before you turn in for the night. A young graphic designer had just rented a small studio space to launch his new clothing brand. While getting everything set up, he stumbled across a handful of old mannequins that had been abandoned near the building. Free display props, so naturally he took them. He never gave it a second thought, and that would turn out to be his first mistake. Within just a few days, things inside that room started happening that he simply couldn't account for. Then one night, at 3 in the morning, he heard a scream. He grabbed his phone and hit record.
Nunca me levanté hasta ahora. Escuché hace un ratito escuché que deslizaban esto como si estuvieran revisando la ropa, boludo. Alto cagazo, me hizo pegar esta mierda.
For the briefest of moments, something edges out from behind that corner, and then it vanishes. He pushes himself to walk in, trying to hold it together, and that's when one of the mannequins shifts, almost like it rotated to look at him. He bolted. The following day, he mounted a camera in the room, convinced he'd find a rational explanation. Pay close attention to what it captured.
Bueno, esto parece que se rompió, no sé quién habrá sido. Y toda la ropa en el piso. Esto es una locura. Yo no puedo creer esto. Yo no puedo creer esto.
Because over the hours that follow, that same mannequin can be seen slowly repositioning itself with no one around. And then the clothing begins sliding off the racks, one piece at a time, no wind, no movement, no explanation. He hadn't imagined any of it. The camera confirmed every bit of it. Whatever had been lurking inside those mannequins when he pulled them from that dumpster had made itself at home, and it wasn't finished. Some things get thrown out for a reason. In this video, 2 men are out recording the nighttime atmosphere at a location notorious for its chilling history. The area is said to be the very spot where a body was once found, which is why most locals refuse to go anywhere near it after dark. Initially, they are just panning the camera around and chatting with one another until the lens happens to catch something lurking above the tree line. See for yourself what the footage reveals.
Kadang bidik. Ngiwang.
Terus, bukan. Kanan, gini. Nah, terus.
Nestled among the dark branches and foliage, a red-toned figure with long hair hanging down can be spotted perched completely still in the tree. Its full shape isn't entirely clear due to the surrounding leaves partially obscuring it, but its mere presence is enough to send a chill through the entire scene. For several seconds, the figure remains absolutely motionless before gradually disappearing back into the darkness. A lot of viewers are convinced the silhouette belongs to some kind of ghost, though to this day, nobody has been able to say with certainty what exactly was captured out there that night. In the following clip you're about to watch, a man was in the middle of editing a video late at night when he got up for a break and noticed something in the reflection of his white French door, the glass acting like a dark mirror against the night outside. And sitting in the corner of his sofa in that reflection is a dense, dark mass with no shape, no detail, just a shadow that has no business being there. He pans to the actual sofa, empty. He pans back to the reflection, still there.
Estaba editando un video y decidí levantarme para cenar algo, pero quiero que vean algo. Esto está muy cabrón, es otro nivel. Les voy a poner la cámara frontal para que vean. Vean lo que se ve aquí en este reflejo. Y en la esquina del sillón se ve esa sombra, pero no hay nada. No hay nada ahí. ¿Ven? Ahí está. Esto ya está muy cabrón. No mames. Estaba atrás de mí. ¿Quién eres? ¿Qué quieres? Estaba atrás de mí. Está aquí afuera. ¿Qué quieres? ¿Quién eres? ¿Dónde estás? Aquí estaba.
What makes this one land harder than most isn't just the shadow on the sofa, it's what replaces it. Around the 1 minute mark, the shadow is gone, and in its place, visible only in the reflection, a tall, thin figure is now standing directly behind him, not across the room anymore, right behind him, while he's holding the camera, completely unaware of how much the situation has changed since he started filming. In paranormal research, shadow figures that appear specifically in reflective surfaces, glass, mirrors, dark windows are considered a distinct category from standard apparitions, entities that exist at the boundary between spaces rather than fully within either one, using the reflective threshold the same way a two-way mirror works, able to observe without being directly seen. The behavior here is the detail that unsettles people most, the way it closes the distance between the first reflection check and the second, as if it was watching him figure out it was there and decided to move while his attention was on the camera. He says at the end, "I'm leaving now," and across every cultural tradition that has ever documented something like this, that is exactly the correct response. So what do you think? Was that glass showing him something that was in that room all night? Or did noticing it give it permission to come closer? In this next clip, a man is filming alone at night, or at least he thinks he's alone, after hearing what sounds like a faucet turning on by itself somewhere inside the house. Armed with his phone, he makes his way down a short set of stairs toward a closed white door, his breathing already unsteady before he's even opened it. When he swings the door open into the dark bathroom and switches on the light, He finds the bathtub faucet running at full pressure, water pouring in with nobody around. "There's nobody here," he says in Spanish, and then, in the mirror, he sees something that changes that entirely.
Escuché que abrió una llave de... No entiendo por qué. Estoy ahí. Ahí está. No hay nadie aquí. No mames. Hay alguien ahí dentro de la tina. ¿Quién eres? ¿Qué quieres? No mames. Prende la luz. Fuck. Ya lo está. ¿Qué pedo? Aquí había alguien, aquí había alguien. Otra vez me tocó, no, ya me voy.
What he catches in that bathroom over the next minute and a half is relentless. The faucet running on its own is unsettling enough, but then a small childlike figure appears motionless behind the semi-transparent shower curtain, and when he yanks it open, there's nothing there. The cabinet door above the toilet swings open on its own with a soft creak, and in the mirror, if you watch carefully, the small figure appears directly behind him, hands rising slowly onto his shoulders, and he doesn't notice it until the screech hits and he physically jolts sideways, saying in a panic, "Again, it touched me." Some viewers think the child figure is a classic example of what paranormal communities call a residual haunting, a presence so tied to a space that it keeps repeating the same behavior, the same appearance, over and over, regardless of who walks in. Others point to the more troubling detail. Something in that bathroom doesn't want him to leave. The doorknob rattles and sticks as he tries to get out, and his voice breaks when he finally says, "I'm leaving now." Whether you believe this is genuine or not, the footage is cut together in a way that's genuinely hard to shake. Like and subscribe if you're enjoying watching this video. What exactly was standing behind that shower curtain, and why did it keep coming back after he'd already checked? In this next clip, a man is filming his Dalmatian on a concrete patio during the day when his dog's behavior stops him cold. The dog is standing completely rigid, staring up at something in the overcast sky above it. He says, "Even my dog knows something ain't right, man." And that line kind of says everything.
My dog's weirded out. Even my dog knows something ain't right, man. You okay?
A dark, branch-like object hangs motionless against the grey clouds. No movement, no drift, nothing a balloon or kite would do. What's harder to dismiss is the dog. Animals are widely believed to perceive things outside human sensory range, and that locked, unbroken stare toward the sky is difficult to explain away. So what exactly were they both looking at? This next clip was filmed at nighttime outside what appears to be a residential building, somewhere near a narrow alleyway marked with the number 77 on the wall. A young boy is out there with whoever is holding the camera, and from the very beginning, the boy's attention keeps drifting toward a black metal gate at the end of the alley, like something on the other side is pulling it there. He walks over to the corner, peers through the bars, points into the darkness, then walks back. Then he does it again. No explanation, no reaction from anyone around him. Just a child, alone with a blonde doll on a tiled ledge, drawn over and over toward whatever is down that alley.
No hay nada, papá.
¡A la verga! ¿Cómo es? Vente por acá, vente por acá. Vente por acá, métete. Papi, no juegues tan brusco con las muñecas, papi. Ahí está el guante y Scary Movie también. Los caminos de la vida. Ey, Eliezer. Hijo, ¿qué estás haciendo ahí? Hazte para acá, mi amor. ¿Eh? ¿Tu amiga? ¿En dónde? ¿De quién hablas? ¿Tú qué? ¿Tu amiga? ¿Hay una persona ahí? A ver, vete para acá. Ahí no hay nadie, mi amor. Póngase a jugar. Mi amiga, lo que dice. No juegues tan brusco, papi. Los caminos... Otra vez... Hijo. Hey, hijo. Te dije que te vinieras a jugar y que no estuvieras ahí. No hay... ¿Cómo que tu amiga, papá? Ahí no hay nadie, mi amor.
Mira.
A ver, hazte para acá. Mira, ven, ven para acá, te voy a explicar. Aquí no hay absolutamente... ¿Eh?
¡Estás pisando!
¿A quién estoy pisando, papi?
¡A mi amiga! ¡Está enterrada!
¿Enterrada en dónde?
¡Allí!
¿Aquí donde estoy yo?
Sí.
A ver, mejor, ¿sabes qué? Vete por allá. A ver, te está afectando mucho ver películas. Ya no te voy a poner la tele en la noche, papi, ¿eh? Porque estás jugando muy raro y estás viendo cosas que no. No hay ninguna amiga, papi. ¿Tú la has visto? Ay, no. ¿Y cómo que quiere jugar contigo? ¿Te habla o qué?
Sí.
¿Qué te dice? Aquí no hay nada, papá. ¡A la verga! ¿Cómo es? Vete por acá, vete por acá. Vete por acá, métete. Ven. ¿Cómo es ella? ¿Cómo es? Es que vi algo al fondo. ¿Cómo es?
Es una niña.
¿Es una niña grande o chiquita?
Grande.
That tall, robed figure, standing completely motionless at the far end of the alley. It doesn't move, doesn't react, and when the camera checks back at the 2-minute mark, it's still there, in the exact same spot. Some viewers immediately pointed to La Llorona, or similar cloaked spirit figures from Latin American folklore, entities said to linger near children in darkness. Others think this is staged. But what's harder to dismiss is the boy himself. His expression when he turns back toward the camera is serious, almost troubled, like he genuinely knows something is there, and he called it his friend. So what was he actually looking at? Now in this next clip, a couple staying overnight in a cave dwelling built into the Appalachian Mountains woke up at 3 a.m. to screaming coming from somewhere out in the dark, and neither of them could explain where it was coming from. The setup alone is unsettling enough. They're sleeping inside a structure carved into natural rock, connected to the rest of the property by a narrow suspension bridge that disappears into pitch black woods. When the woman needed to use the bathroom, she had no choice but to cross it alone. Watch.
This is where we're sleeping tonight.
Pound Town, baby.
Not Pound Town. That's a literal cave outside. It's not funny. We're going to bed now. The door is locked.
Pocket Glock.
What's your safe word for tonight?
Wendigo.
Do I want to go down those stairs?
Okay.
I didn't see that before. Hell no, Chase. Hell no.
Let's go down there, babe.
No.
Get you back to the cemetery. Oh, it's starting to rain hard.
Let's go. You go first. Because if the rat runs and charges
How
it.
dark it is, like, watch this. What would you do if there was a figure right there? Watch. Alright, third time's a charm. When to go. Strap.
What is it? It's probably a rat.
Probably a skinwalker.
Babe, it was a massive rat.
Was it a possum or a raccoon?
No, it was a rat.
You know it was a rat.
I know it was a rat. I know what a rat looks like.
Good night.
What you're watching is her making that crossing at 3 in the morning, the surrounding darkness swallowing everything beyond the flashlight beam, while her boyfriend waits on the other side shirtless, holding a handgun and a flashlight, clearly not treating whatever they heard as nothing. The Appalachians have a long history of unexplained sounds, with locals and hikers reporting screams, howls, and voices that don't match any known wildlife. Some believe it's simply a fox or a mountain lion. Others aren't so sure. Whatever made those sounds that night, they never did get it on camera. Now in this next clip, a mother named Alyssa started noticing something unusual about the way her baby boy behaves near one specific bedroom in the house. Not the living room, not the kitchen, not any other room, just that one. Every single time he gets close to that doorway, his whole demeanor shifts. He becomes focused, animated, almost giddy, as though something inside is greeting him, something nobody else can see. Alyssa says this happens every time, without fail, and she finally decided to film it to show people what she's been witnessing.
He does this every single time he goes into this room. Oh, why do you do that? It's only that room. What in the world? Why are you doing that?
The baby sits right at the threshold, looking into that empty room, then turns back toward the camera with a huge smile and excited little sounds, back and forth, like he's taking turns with someone. Many believe young children, especially babies, can perceive things adults simply can't. Some call it innocence, as a kind of spiritual antenna. Others think it could be a familiar presence, a loved one who passed, drawn to the child. You decide, what exactly is he seeing in there? In the following clip you're about to watch, a man had been watching something crouch at the far end of his porch on his doorbell camera every single night for a week straight. Same spot, same low position, same time. And on this particular night, he decided he was done watching it on a screen. He stepped outside, phone in hand, and started shouting into the dark that he'd already called the cops and had everything on film. The kind of confrontation that's supposed to end with a person running or an animal scattering. The porch is empty. The yard is completely quiet. Nothing moves. Watch.
I've seen this person outside my house every night this week on the doorbell camera. Whoever's out here, I called the cops. And I have you on film. Oh my god. Oh my god.
As he turns back toward the house, something is looking out at him through the slats of the blinds. A woman with long dark hair, a yellow top, and eyes that are completely white. No iris, no pupil, just blank, with her mouth slightly open in something that sits just wrong enough to not be called a smile. Then the blind snaps shut. And if you go back and watch the first pass along that window, there's nothing visible through the slats at all, which means whatever was standing inside that room either wasn't there yet or didn't want to be seen until he turned around. In paranormal research, entities that position themselves at windows and doorways are considered threshold presences, beings that operate specifically at the boundary between inside and outside, observed and unobserved. And the white eyes reported across multiple cultural traditions are consistently associated with something that isn't fully human in its current form. A vessel, an apparition, or something wearing a shape it borrowed rather than grew into. The detail that lingers most is the week of crouching at the end of the porch, because whatever was out there every night wasn't lost or wandering, it was watching, and it had been doing it long enough to learn his schedule. So what do you think? Was something waiting outside that house all week for him to finally come out, or had it already been inside the entire time? The following video was recorded by a man at 2 in the morning inside his apartment, a place he claims has been active since long before this night, something he describes as a presence that has followed him across multiple videos and refuses to leave him alone. By the time he picks up his phone to start filming, the sounds have already begun coming from the dark living room, a rhythmic, repetitive creaking, the kind that stops you mid-breath because you know there's nothing in there that should be moving.
Son las 2 de la mañana, se están escuchando ruidos en la sala. Está moviendo la silla, raza. La madre. Escucho algo acá, raza. Un balón de desodorante. ¿Qué estará pasando, anda? Madre.
Some viewers think the sheer volume and variety of sounds in such a short window points towards something staged, and that's a fair argument to make. But others point out that poltergeist-type activity, a term rooted in German folklore meaning noisy ghost, traditionally associated with volatile, object-moving disturbances rather than quiet apparitions, often presents in exactly this pattern, escalating, chaotic, spread across multiple locations in the same space, and almost impossible to predict or document clearly. It didn't stop there. An hour later, he's back in the same bedroom, woken from sleep this time, and whatever he'd been dealing with at 2 a.m. had apparently not finished. Listen closely.
Raza, son las 3 de la mañana, se siguen escuchando muchos ruidos allá afuera. Quieren abrir la puerta, raza. ¿Qué está pasando? Ay, Dios mío.
A violent crash erupts from the dark room adjacent to the bedroom, something heavy hitting the floor with enough force to send him scrambling for the door, gasping, fumbling with the handle, unable even to look back at what caused it. The sounds in the first clip were loud and frightening, But this one lands differently because he was asleep when it started, which means whatever is happening in that apartment isn't waiting for him to be watching anymore. Some who've followed cases like this believe that shift from activity that occurs while the witness is awake and filming to activity that interrupts sleep signals a deeper level of presence, something less like background noise and more like deliberate intrusion. Skeptics will argue it's a neighbor, a settling building, anything that doesn't require a paranormal explanation. But if you've watched both clips back to back, you already know what question is sitting at the back of your mind. And if you're enjoying watching this video, like and subscribe. At 3 in the morning, alone in that apartment, what would you actually do? In this next clip, a woman is parked outside at night, filming from inside her car, and she's clearly shaken. She describes watching something move across her rearview mirror while she was sitting in the vehicle, something that tracked from the back of the car toward the front, visible both through the mirror and from outside the window. According to her, every time she looked away, she'd lose it. But when she looked back, it was closer. Look closely at her side mirror, you'll see what looks like 3 shadow beings.
I understand this is probably gonna sound insane or look like a blur to you, but I was crying. I watched this thing move across in my rearview mirror when I was driving back of my car to the front. I could see it from outside and in the mirror. I got out of my car, like staring at me, but if I looked away, I couldn't find it until it was closer. I have never felt fear like this. The hair on my arms was standing up. I was crying on the phone with my mom, waiting for my stepdad to come over because I couldn't believe this is what I really saw.
Her voice barely holds together as she recounts it. She says she's never felt fear like that in her life, that the hair on her arms was standing up, that she ended up on the phone with her mother, waiting for her stepfather to come over because she couldn't process what she'd just seen. That ambiguity is exactly what makes this so difficult to dismiss. Some viewers think the distress in her voice alone tells you everything. That kind of fear is hard to fake. Others believe she may have encountered what's sometimes described as a shadow entity, something that exists at the edge of perception and retreats the moment you focus on it directly. You decide. In this next clip, a man has been dealing with a relentless and escalating pattern inside his apartment, specifically centered around the doors, and not as a one-off event that could be brushed off and forgotten, but a sustained, ongoing situation that has pushed him to the point of grabbing his phone every time it starts. The first piece of footage is barely 8 seconds, but it's the sound that stops you cold. Watch. A rapid rhythmic clicking and tapping emanates from the door itself, persistent, almost mechanical, like something working at the latch from the other side, and it stops the exact instant his hand makes contact with the handle, not before, not a moment after, which is the detail that moves it out of the category of a loose mechanism and into something that feels more like a response. Like whatever was doing, it knew he was there. It didn't stay contained to the door. Shortly after, he finds his 2 dining chairs pulled out from the table and positioned at odd angles in the middle of the room, and his immediate reaction makes clear he didn't leave them that way. His cat Rory is visible nearby, and skeptics pointed to that immediately, but 2 heavy dining chairs displaced simultaneously at those angles from a single small cat is a stretch that most viewers weren't willing to make.
What the fuck?
The third clip is the longest and most detailed piece of footage he's captured, and it's where the pattern becomes impossible to dismiss. For over a minute, the door handle jiggles up and down on its own, rhythmically, audibly, relentlessly, while persistent knocking runs underneath it the entire time. He grabs the handle and the sounds stop. He lets go and they start again. He opens the door to an empty hallway, closes it, and within seconds, it starts back up, more frantic than before. And then a crash from the living room. And when he turns around, the cat tunnel that had been lying on the floor is sitting on top of the couch. "I know Rory didn't do that," he says, and you can hear the fear settling in behind the disbelief.
See, it's still happening. Honestly, this is all the time. Whoa, Jesus. The cat scared the shit out of me. fuck? Rory, you were really scaring the shit out of me. Fuck. I know Rory didn't do that. What the fuck is going on? What the fuck happened, Rory?
In paranormal research, this specific progression, isolated sounds, giving way to object displacement, activity concentrated around thresholds and enclosed spaces, escalating in intensity over time, is one of the most consistently documented patterns in poltergeist cases. An entity that builds and releases energy through physical disturbance rather than visual appearance, testing boundaries repeatedly until it finds one that gives. And then, on another night, locked inside the bathroom, the door rattles violently in its frame for over 30 seconds straight. And when he finally gets it open and stands in the doorway, a clear and distinct sound of rapid footsteps runs away from him down the hallway, light and quick, moving with direction, there and then gone.
Right, so I'm just in the toilet, and as you can hear, the door's rattling. So I feel quite trapped. But I'm going to open it and see what happens. That would help if I actually unlocked the door, wouldn't it? Was that you? That couldn't have been you. Oh, fuck off.
That last detail is what changes everything, because a rattling door can be argued away, but footsteps running down an empty corridor have a specificity that's very hard to square with any environmental explanation. Whatever is in that apartment isn't just making noise anymore, it's moving through the space. It knows the layout, and it's been there long enough to stop being startled by him. So what do you think? Is this an intelligent presence, methodically testing every threshold in that apartment, or something residual and restless locked into the architecture of that specific space, unable to stop doing what it's always done? This next video was recorded inside a public restroom at the Forum at 1 in the morning by a man who says he'd been hearing noises he couldn't explain. He's alone in the building, or at least he thinks he is. It's his second night documenting strange activity in this location, and the sounds coming from inside the bathroom are what pulled him in there in the first place. He films the hallway, then turns the camera on himself, visibly nervous, explaining the situation in real time. Then he walks in, scans the counter and the mirrors, and points toward a row of red stall doors. No feet visible under any of them. He crouches low, angle dropping toward the floor gap, calling out, "Hello, is anyone there?" Nothing answers. Watch.
Día 2, nos siguen pasando cosas extrañas. Miren lo que va a pasar.
Es la 1 de la mañana, estoy en el baño de Forum, estoy completamente solo y estoy escuchando ruidos adentro del pinche baño. Vete a la verga, güey. Yo escuché ruidos que venían de allá. Ay, cabrón, no mames. Verga, güey, ¿qué pedo? No hay nadie. No mames, ¿qué pedo? ¿Qué es eso? ¿Hola? ¿Hay alguien aquí? No mames, ¿qué pedo? ¿Hola? ¿Hola, hola? ¿Hola? No mames, no mames, no mames, no mames.
The second stall door swings violently open with a loud bang, and he bolts. But if you listen closely, just before the bang, there's something else. A faint, high-pitched breath, almost like a child's gasp, right before the door moves. Some viewers think it's a hidden accomplice pulling a string. Others aren't so sure, because whatever made that sound, it doesn't quite match anything you'd expect from a person standing on the other side of a door. This next video was recorded inside what appears to be a school. At night, completely empty, or at least it should have been. The man filming makes his way through the building with a flashlight, and right away, something's off. Inside a bathroom, he's barely started recording when a wooden door swings open on its own, slowly, with a long, drawn-out creak, and stops. He chuckles, almost nervous, and keeps moving. Outside, through a chain-link fence, he spots a deer standing by the roadside, but that's not what catches his attention. In a lit window of a nearby building, one he says is locked, and alarmed, there's a dark, motionless silhouette standing inside, just watching. Then the crashes start. 2 separate rooms, 2 violent metallic bangs, both from just off camera, and you can hear the shock in his voice each time. Watch.
Yeah. Esa puerta también. ¿Vieron? Dicen que mis videos son actuados, pero están viendo, no hay nadie. Estoy cerrando la puerta y miren, a lo lejos se ve como si estuviera alguien ahí. ¿Alcanzan a ver? El venado no, lo otro, ahí está. Y ahí ya no se supone que ya no hay nadie, vean. Ahí está alguien. Ya no hay nadie, ya puse la alarma y todo y nomás para que vean. Y miren, vengo a cerrar y ya me voy. ¡Uy, hijo de su puta madre!
What gets people most isn't the door or even the sounds. It's that final shot. The security camera footage left running in the hallway. At the far left end, a tall, thin, dark figure slowly peers around the corner, holds there for a second or two, then pulls back out of sight. Some viewers think it's a shadow person, a term used online and in paranormal communities to describe dark, humanoid shapes that appear briefly and seem aware they're being watched. Others aren't convinced it's anything more than a person who shouldn't be there. But if that's the case, where did they go? You decide. In the following clip you're about to watch, a man named Antonio is moving through the courtyard of an abandoned asylum at night, flashlight cutting through the dark, white-walled buildings, pressing in on either side, a bucket and broom sitting outside the entrance, like whoever left them there didn't plan on coming back for them. What makes this different from a standard urban exploration video is the caption, Antonio has been here before, which means this isn't someone stumbling into something unexpected, it's someone who already knows what this place feels like at night and chose to return anyway, and that distinction matters. He hesitates at the doorway, muttering to himself in Spanish, half talking himself in and half talking himself out, before shifting into prayer, invoking the blood of Christ, commanding whatever is inside to stop before he's even seen anything yet, which tells you everything about what he was expecting to find in there. Watch.
Puta, no, chicos, esto está demasiado cargado, loco. Está de... ¡Ala, qué verga! ¿Qué? Vaya, ala, no sé, entro. Me dan ganas de entrar, se los juro, porque quiero... Pero... Ok. Nosotros venimos para esto. Nosotros venimos a grabar esto. Ok. La sangre de Cristo tiene poder. La sangre de Cristo tiene poder. Tú no tienes poder aquí. Estoy bañado en la sangre de Cristo, ¿entendiste? Alto demonio, basta, detente. ¡Basta, demonio! Te ordeno que te detengas. ¡Basta! Puta madre. No, chica, la mierda, loco. Mira, esa tía se está moviendo. Uy, no me jodas, no. No me jodas. No, por un momento pensé que había alguien ahí dentro.
¡Uy, no! Pensé que había alguien adentro, loco. Te lo juro que yo pensé que me iba a topar con alguien adentro. ¡Mierda! ¡Mierda!
The office chair just inside the doorway rolls backward several feet on its own, smooth, deliberate, covering real distance before stopping deep in the dark, and Antonio screams at it in Spanish, ordering it to stop. Then it rotates. No one is in that room. That movement isn't a drift, and it isn't an uneven floor. It moves with intention, and the timing is the detail most viewers can't get past, because the chair doesn't react while he's walking the path or standing in the courtyard. It moves in the exact window between the end of his prayer and the moment he steps through that doorway, as if whatever is in that room was listening to every word and waiting for him to finish. Abandoned asylums are considered some of the most residually saturated environments in paranormal research. Decades of fear and suffering absorbed into the architecture, compounding long after the building empties out. But residual energy doesn't respond to prayer, and that chair didn't drift, it waited. So what do you think? Was Antonio walking into a space thick with trapped energy, or did something in that asylum hear his prayer and decide to answer it? This next set of clips comes from a series of videos shared by the same man, recorded across multiple early morning hours, 4 a.m., 5 a.m., sometimes pushing past dawn, all centered on the same claim, that La Llorona, the weeping woman of Mexican and Latin American folklore, had taken up residence in his home. For context, La Llorona is one of the most enduring figures in Hispanic tradition, a woman said to have drowned her own children in a fit of grief and rage, condemned to wander riverbanks and dark hallways forever after, wailing for the souls she can never reclaim. Parents have used her name for generations to keep children from straying out at night. She is not a casual boogeyman, so when this man starts invoking her name at 5 in the morning, locked in his bathroom, it sets a certain kind of stage. Watch.
5:23 de la mañana, gente, y ya está empezando a amanecer. Yo desde las 9 de la noche estoy metido acá en el baño. A mí no me jode. Acá recién pasó un ovni y mira acá está el duende, ¿eh? ¡Deja de estar golpeando! ¡No esté golpeando! ¡No esté golpeando! ¡No! ¡Ah, no! ¡Andate! Vos sos pelotudo, te parió un teletubi, idiota, ¿eh? ¡Andate!
What you just heard was a man who claims he's been trapped in his bathroom since 9 the previous night. That's roughly 8 hours. While something on the other side of that door bangs, throws objects into the room, and refuses to let him leave. A roll of toilet paper, then a pink bottle, both sailing in from just off camera, and his response is to hurl a small trash can toward the door and yell back in rapid, panicked Spanish. Skeptics will immediately point out that everything thrown enters the frame from just off screen, exactly where a second person standing beside the camera could be standing. Others think the 8-hour detail is what makes it harder to dismiss entirely. Who sets up that kind of backstory for a joke? The build-up that follows across the next few clips starts to paint a stranger picture. In the second recording, made around 5:20 a.m., as dawn was just beginning to bleed through the window, the same man grabs what appears to be a long, thin stick and walks toward a darkened doorway. Listen closely.
5:20 de la mañana, gente. Está empezando a amanecer. Miren lo que es. Miren, ahí está el reloj. Y para los que no creían en la Llorona, miren, me desperté por los lamentos de esta. Pero no vinimos acá para estar teniéndole miedo. Venimos a darle al fandom lo que siempre busca. Mamoncita, no, mamoncita. ¿Con que te vas a venir a esconder? No te piando. No te piando. Levandum nerviosa. ¿Dónde estás? Salí. De donde quieras que estés, maldita. ¿No te das cuenta que ya nos cansaste con los pelos parados? Siempre lo mismo. Acá, se escuchó el ruido. Espectro. Baboso.
There's a dark shape visible in the doorway, vaguely humanoid, standing still, appearing to shift or retreat as he moves toward it. His approach is anything but afraid though. He taunts it in Spanish, recites what sounds like a parody of a magic spell. dares it to come out, and calls it a slimy spectre while making lightsaber sounds with his mouth. The comedic framing is deliberate, and it undercuts the eeriness of that figure in the doorway almost immediately. But here's the thing, the shape is there, and it does move. Whether that's a person, a shadow, or something else is genuinely difficult to say given the low light and shaky footage. By the third recording, made at 4:31 a.m. during a rainstorm, he's carrying a small wicker Christmas tree ornament, and once again, pointing his camera down a hallway toward a partially open door. Watch.
4:31 de la mañana, gente. Está lloviendo, miren lo que es. Y les voy a mostrar la Llorona. Y quiero que ustedes saquen su captura de pantalla. Acá tengo el arbolito navideño del económico, nomás de este que te regalan en cualquier basurero. Miren lo que es. Miren lo que es. Miren lo que es. Miren lo que es. Y no tiene pies, Miren lo que es. Pero acá no vinimos a tenerle miedo, gente. Acá vinimos a darle al verdadero fandom lo que siempre busca. ¿Dónde estás? ¿Por qué no salís? No, porque atrás de la puerta, puede esconderse atrás de la puerta. ¿Por qué no salís? ¿Por qué no salís? ¿Querés que te encanten los Jingle Bells? ¿Querés que te cante? Siempre lo mismo contigo, ¿no? Siempre apostando a que no te das, que sí, que te tengo miedo, ¿no? ¿Quieres asustar al próximo digo, Tengo el arbolito económico del económico acá. ¿Por qué no sales? ¿Por qué no sales de donde estás? Acá se escucha ruido, se escucha ruido. ¿Dónde estás? No te piando.
The figure standing in that dark gap is tall, slender, and completely motionless, and he claims it has no feet, though the bottom of whatever it is stays out of frame. He rushes in anyway, lights come on, and he spends the rest of the clip searching a cluttered bedroom, yelling challenges, offering to sing jingle bells, demanding the entity show itself. No audio anomaly is captured. Nothing moves on its own. And yet, that initial image in the doorway, static, dark, upright, keeps nagging at you. The fourth clip was filmed at 2:21 a.m., the coldest and darkest of the bunch, and the tone shifts. Watch closely.
2:21 de la mañana, gente. Yo les voy a mostrar lo que es la Llorona. Está haciendo 2 grados bajo cero. Allá está el reloj, las 2:21 de la mañana. Miren lo que es. Miren. Saquen sus capturas de pantalla. Miren, no te piando. Los seguidores me pidieron que diga esta frase. Padre nuestro. Escuchen. ¿Dónde estás? Vení, salí acá. Tienen que tener cuidado, gente, que no le pique. Tienen que tener cuidado que no le vaya a picar, gente. Allá está, miren, atrás de la ventana, no te piando. ¿Por qué no venís acá? ¿Por qué no venís a pararte de mano, ¿Por qué no venís a pararte de mano? Te voy a hacer volver de donde viniste. Agarrá y andate, mal peinada.
Right after he shouts a prayer, Padre Nuestro, a high-pitched wailing scream erupts from somewhere off camera. It's sharp and unmistakable, the kind of sound that would make the hair stand up on your neck. He immediately yells for anyone watching to listen, and his breathing goes ragged and panicked in a way that feels less theatrical than the earlier clips. That scream is the closest any of these recordings get to the La Llorona mythos directly. Her legend is built entirely around that sound, a woman's wail near dark spaces and doorways in the small hours of the morning. Skeptics argue it's a sound effect dropped in during editing, and the timing, perfectly synchronized with the prayer, is almost too convenient. But if you were standing in that house at 2 a.m., you might not stop to consider the editing timeline. The fifth and final recording, made at 4:33 a.m., takes the whole series in a direction that's harder to categorize. Watch.
4:33 de la mañana, gente, ya está empezando a amanecer. Miren lo que son los pollitos, cómo ya están cantando. Y a la gente que no cree en la Llorona, miren lo que es eso. Miren lo que es, cómo se está moviendo para todos lados, como que parece que tiene Parkinson ahí. Pero acá no vinimos a tenerle miedo, vinimos a darle al fandom lo que siempre busca. A ver. Con que escondiéndose, No. Acá te mando una Nodu, por la duda. Y te mando todos tus regalos por si te querés venir a vivir acá. Siempre lo mismo con vos. Te voy a traer un acondicionador. A ver si te pones un poco en el pelo, porque las veces que vengo acá tenés los pelos parados. ¡Ridícula! Te reprendo en el nombre de todos los santos que pueden haber en el mundo. Siempre lo mismo con vos. Yo me miré todos los capítulos de las Tortugas Ninjas.
Taken together, what this series actually represents is genuinely difficult to pin down. 5 videos that oscillate between something that might be a real experience and something that might be elaborate, deliberately funny performance art built around one of the most potent figures in Latin American folklore. Whether or not La Llorona has anything to do with any of it, you be the judge. The following video was recorded inside an unfinished house during what appeared to be a routine walkthrough. A man moving through empty rooms, checking around corners, calling out into the silence the way most of us probably would if we felt like something was off. The house is under active construction, tools and paint cans scattered across the floors, new cabinets still waiting to be finished, a dark concrete staircase leading down into a basement that he approaches cautiously from the very first frame. He keeps calling out, "Hello? Anybody here?" Moving from room to room, his footsteps loud on the new woodlook flooring, the whole place feeling oddly tense despite being completely empty. Then something small happens first. A long piece of metal trim, balanced on the edge of the kitchen island, begins to slowly slide and drops to the floor with a soft thud, just enough to make him stop. He says, "What the heck is that?" and edges toward a bedroom doorway, still calling out, "Watch."
Hello? Hello? Anybody here? Hello? Hello? The heck is that? Hello? Who is it?
What follows is a sequence that's hard to process even on a second viewing. 2 loud, sharp bangs erupt from off camera. Then an interior hallway door slams shut with violent force. And not slowly, not drifting, but snapping shut as if something threw it. Seconds later, the basement door slams shut behind him. He shouts, "Who is it?" And then a metallic clanging sound starts from inside that now closed basement. He screams and runs, dropping the phone completely, leaving the camera on the floor pointing up at the ceiling. And then, an enormous crash erupts from somewhere above, like something structural gave way or was thrown. The camera sits there alone for over a minute, and then something weird happens. The phone spins by itself. After a while, he comes back, out of breath and visibly shaken, to pick up his phone. Some viewers have argued the metal trim sliding was a natural event, precarious placement, vibration from footsteps, but the door slamming sequence is harder to dismiss. Poltergeist activity, according to many paranormal researchers, often follows exactly this kind of pattern. Not one event, but a rapid chain of them, as if something is escalating deliberately, pushing harder each time it's acknowledged. The second clip picks up somewhere similar in energy. At nighttime, in what appears to be a residential home, a man moves through the house with his phone, checking each room: a downstairs bedroom, a cluttered room, a laundry area, then down into a basement living space. You can hear a cough, a creak, the ambient quiet of a house at night. Then at 43 seconds, every light in the house goes out at once. Listen closely. What he finds when he makes it back upstairs is what stops you cold. The refrigerator door is standing wide open. A wooden dining chair has been placed on top of the table. A framed picture on the wall is now hanging at a severe angle. And in the kitchen, a large knife is standing upright, blade stabbed down into a cutting board. None of those things were like that before he went downstairs. The sound design throughout this clip, a low droning hum, a high-pitched screech when the lights cut, does feel added, and the progression of reveals follows a structure that's almost too clean, too cinematic. Some viewers called it staged almost immediately. But here's the thing, the knife in the cutting board, standing perfectly upright, is the kind of image that stays with you regardless of what you believe about it. In poltergeist cases, sharp objects being positioned or moved deliberately is one of the most documented and most disturbing categories of reported activity, with some traditions interpreting it as a specific kind of threat, not random chaos, but something intentional and directed. Whether both of these clips represent genuine events or carefully constructed moments, the pattern they share is unmistakable. A house that seems quiet, a man alone, and then everything happening at once. I'd love to hear what you think in the comments. And if you're enjoying watching this video, like and subscribe. Because in both cases, whatever the explanation, neither man stuck around long enough to find out what came next. In the following clip you're about to watch, it's 3 in the morning inside a family home, completely quiet, nothing unusual in the air, and then, just before everything breaks loose, a distorted electronic sound begins bleeding through the silence. Something like a voice caught between static and dead frequencies, faint enough to almost dismiss. And then this happens. That distorted voice cutting through the silence right before it all broke loose is the detail that sits with you longest. Because in paranormal research, electronic interference immediately preceding a visual manifestation is considered one of the stronger indicators of an intelligent presence drawing on electromagnetic energy to make itself visible, pulling from whatever power source is available in the environment right before it crosses the threshold into something the human eye can register. A presence that announces itself through static before it appears is one that understands the mechanics of its own manifestation, which puts it in a very different category from something residual or passive. In multiple documented cases, this exact sequence, distorted audio followed by a visual apparition, has been associated with entities that are not only intelligent but deliberate. Ones that choose the hour, choose the location, and choose who sees them. 3 in the morning, a dark hallway, and something that let the static go first. So what do you think? Was that voice the sound of something gathering enough energy to finally be seen, or a warning that nobody in that house was meant to hear? In this next clip, a woman describes what she believes she caught on a family sleigh ride in Deer Valley, a nighttime outing through snowy, wooded mountains with her husband, 2 kids, and 2 sleigh drivers. That's it. No one else around for miles. She says she considers herself spiritually aware, but this was the first time she had anything she could actually point to on camera. The clip itself is only a few seconds of ordinary family footage. Kids bundled under a blanket, dark trees rolling past, her husband smiling over at the camera. Nothing looks wrong at all. Listen closely.
I caught a mimic on camera pretending to be my child. And I know that sounds so crazy, but I'm about to play this video for you so that you can watch it yourself. And I consider myself pretty spiritually awake. I'm an intuitive, but this is the first time that I actually have physical evidence. And I've watched this video many times and I still have yet to come up with a rational or logical explanation as to what this voice is. In this video, my family and I are on a sleigh ride in Deer Valley, and we are in the middle of the mountains. There is no one around us. The only people on this sleigh are me, my husband, the 2 children that you see, and the 2 drivers, who are 2 grown men. Yet in the first 5 seconds of the video, you clearly hear a loud voice that says, "Hello, Daddy." This voice is clearly not my daughter's voice because you can see her mouth in the video, it doesn't move. And some may argue that this voice is my son's voice because his mouth is covered up. But if you watch the video, you can see that my son starts speaking towards the end and it's very muffled. It's in complete contrast to this loud, crisp, clear voice that you hear in the beginning. And additionally, this voice seems to have like a weird British Victorian accent. I don't even know what kind of accent it is. And my son does not speak like that. But yeah, just watch this video and let me know what you think.
Hello, Daddy.
A little warmer over there.
It's beautiful. Oh, no. Getting exercise. No, in my eye.
At around 1 minute and 34 seconds into the recording, a voice cuts through the ambient sounds of the moving sleigh, high-pitched, childlike, unmistakably clear, saying, "Hello, Daddy." The girl's mouth isn't moving when it happens, and if you focus on the boy, his voice later in the clip is completely muffled by his face covering, making it nearly impossible he produced something that crisp and theatrical. She describes the accent as having a strange, almost old-fashioned quality, not American, almost Victorian in its delivery. That description is what stops people in the comments. A mimic, in paranormal circles, refers to an entity believed to copy the voices or appearance of people close to you, sometimes a child, sometimes a family member, often in an attempt to get a response. And whatever spoke on that sleigh, it knew exactly what to say. In the following clip you're about to watch, a man has been documenting what he started calling the Shadow Man, an entity that has been making itself known in increasingly aggressive ways over a period of weeks, and by the time he started filming, the activity had already moved well past the point of easy dismissal. He'd been hearing scratching coming from the bathroom at night, set his phone on the floor to capture whatever was making it, and what showed up in the doorway is the kind of thing that reframes everything that came after. Watch.
So I've been hearing some strange noises coming from this bathroom. And so I'm going to set up this camera to record and see if we catch anything. I've never caught anything on camera before, so I'm hoping that this might be the first time, but kind of sounds like scratches.
A tall, dark, humanoid silhouette holds its position in the bathroom doorway. Not translucent, not misty, but darker than the space around it. The kind of solid absence that multiple cultural traditions describe in exactly the same way. A shadow that has taken on a shape and decided to stay in it. Some researchers connect phenomena like this to the concept of jinn in Middle Eastern folklore, entities believed to exist parallel to the human world and capable of appearing in darkened spaces. Whatever this was, it didn't move away. It stayed. That changed everything. In the days that followed, the activity didn't settle. It got louder. The man began sharing updates, and by the next one, he was no longer alone in noticing something was wrong. Listen closely.
Okay guys, I think I fucked up a little bit. Do you hear that? What the fuck is that? Charlie, the cat's right here. She doesn't seem to be worried about it.
A persistent, rhythmic rattling and scraping sound fills the room, originating from the direction of a closed door and dresser just off camera, while his cat, completely alert, body rigid, sits on the bed and stares unblinking in the exact same direction. Animals don't perform unease. That cat's fixed, tense stare is the kind of corroboration that viewers always point to because it confirms the sound had a presence, a location, something the cat could sense even when the camera couldn't catch it visually. The rattling was continuous, stopping only when the man's visible distress peaked, as if whatever was doing it knew it had his full attention. By third update, he'd had enough. Sleep deprived and visibly worn down, he decided to confront it directly, walking toward the hallway camera in hand, telling whatever was there that it wasn't welcome anymore. Watch closely.
All right. I appreciate all the well wishes. I haven't been getting great sleep lately. I don't know if it's because of this, but I'm going to take your advice. It's been slamming the doors again this morning. I'm just going to tell it to get the fuck out of here. Okay? All right, this is it. You are not welcome here. You need to leave. We are done with your bullshit. We are not going to take it anymore, okay? You need to get the fuck out. No, this is some fucking bullshit.
A human-shaped figure stands perfectly still in the lit doorway at the end of a dark hall, and then a low, guttural growl comes from its direction before the door slams shut with force, sending the man running toward it in alarm. A growl, not a creak, not a rattle, a growl. Skeptics will argue the audio was added in post, that the silhouette was a person standing just inside the bathroom, and the slam was timed for effect. But for viewers who'd been following this series from the beginning, this clip felt less like a scare and more like a response, the entity reacting to being told to leave. That distinction matters because it shifts the nature of what's being described here from a passive haunting to something that listens, something that communicates on its own terms. And then came update 12. By this point, a full week had passed without significant activity, and then, one night, he heard whispering coming from the bathroom. Multiple voices, he says, overlapping, like a conversation happening just out of reach. He approached slowly in the dark, phone recording. Watch.
Okay, I don't know if you can hear this. I'm gonna try and be really quiet. I'm being really quiet. Is somebody in there?
Indistinct, layered whispering can be heard coming from the completely dark and empty bathroom. And when he finally asks out loud whether someone is in there, the whispering stops instantly and is replaced by loud, raspy, heavy breathing that sounds uncomfortably close to the microphone. He rushes in, flicks the light, pulls the shower curtain aside, and the bathroom is empty, no one there. What makes this harder to explain isn't just the sounds themselves, it's the responsiveness. The whispers stopped the moment he asked the question. Something in that bathroom was aware of him, tracking him down the hallway, and chose to change from voices to breathing the instant it was directly addressed. If you've been watching this series from the beginning, the pattern is impossible to ignore. Each update escalates, each event becomes more direct, more communicative, more confrontational. Whatever this man is living with, it's not fading. The question that keeps coming back is a simple one. If you told it to leave and it growled back at you, what exactly do you say next? This next video was recorded inside what appears to be a private home at night by a man who's been dealing with escalating paranormal activity. Not the subtle, easy to dismiss kind, but the kind that responds when you talk back to it. He's walking through the house with a camera, moving from a second floor landing down toward the entryway, speaking out loud to whatever might be listening, telling it, calmly but firmly, that it can't touch him, that God's protection is with him. And up to that point, the house answers back with sharp cracking sounds, loud pops, a chandelier moving, the kind of noise that could maybe be explained away if it weren't so relentless. Then a door slams violently, and he moves into one of the rooms to investigate.
You know I have the power and the protection of God with me, so you can't do anything else to me, can you? You can close doors, you can make noises, you can move the chandelier. Room. So my camera usually shuts off. Who are you? Who are you?
What you just heard isn't background noise. It's a building confrontation, a deep, disembodied groan, a heavy bang, and then a faint, raspy whisper that seems to directly answer when he asks, "Who are you?" Not with silence, but with the same question thrown right back at him. And then it erupts. Violent crashing, thuds, scraping, a chaotic wall of sound coming from somewhere just off camera with no visible source. Some people who've followed cases like this point to the escalation pattern as a key detail. The idea that whatever is in the house isn't passive, it's reactive. And it appears to intensify the more it's challenged or named. Skeptics will say the sounds could be post-production audio layered in for effect. But what's harder to dismiss is the man's real-time reaction, the heavy breathing, the startled questions, the moment where his voice shifts from confident to genuinely rattled. Whatever was in that house didn't seem satisfied with just being heard. Now, in a second clip from this same location, the same man turns his camera down a hallway from an upper landing, and he says something that sets the whole thing up. Every time I turn off the light, there's like a shadow in there. He wants someone else to confirm it.
Alright, tell me I'm on fucking crack. Every time I turn off the light, there's like a shadow there. Watch. See that? Fuck. What the fuck? Tell me I'm not on fucking crack, dude. Oh no. What, dude?
When the light goes off, a tall, dark, featureless silhouette is standing motionlessly in the open doorway at the far end of the hall. When the lights come back on, it's gone. He walks toward it anyway. Then the light goes off a second time, and it's back, standing in the exact same spot, just as still, just as opaque. Some would call this a shadow person, a term used in paranormal communities to describe humanoid, dark figures that appear to observe rather than act. Entities described across multiple cultural traditions, including in Middle Eastern folklore, where similar beings are associated with jinn. Others think the figure is digitally added, pointing to the heavily edited sound design in the clip. But that repeating behavior, same location, same stance, appearing only in the dark, is exactly what makes it so hard to look away. I've watched this one more than once, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. What do you think is standing in that doorway? Like and subscribe if you're enjoying watching this video, because between the audio assault in the first clip and the silent, waiting figure in the second, whatever this is, it doesn't seem like it's done yet. In the following clip you're about to watch, a security camera captures a motorcyclist traveling along a quiet road in Mexico in the early hours of the morning. Just another commute? Nothing about it suggesting this would be anything other than an ordinary day. And then between one frame and the next, the motorcycle is down and the rider is gone. What draws people's attention isn't the crash itself, it's what appears near the wreckage afterward. A dark, humanoid shadow materializes at the scene, moves away from it with what looks like direction and purpose, travels several feet, and then simply isn't there anymore. Watch. Reports confirm one person died at that location. Viewers who slowed the footage down frame by frame were the first to notice it, and once you see it, it's difficult to look past. Skeptics point to compression artifacts and pareidolia, the brain's tendency to find human shapes in ambiguous visual information, and those are fair arguments for a lot of footage that circulates online. But artifacts don't move with consistent direction, and pareidolia doesn't produce a shape that appears specifically after a crash and disappears only after it has traveled a deliberate distance from the wreckage. In paranormal research, footage like this sits in one of the rarest and most debated categories. The possible capture of something departing a body at the moment of death, consciousness leaving in the only way it knows how, completely unaware that the body it just left behind isn't getting back up. That last part is what lingers, because whatever that shadow was, it moved away from the wreckage like someone who still had somewhere to be. So what do you think? Did that camera accidentally document the last moments of someone who had no idea it was their last day? In this next clip, we're following a man named Chris, a ghost hunter who had been hearing enough accounts about skinwalker activity in a specific area that he decided to go investigate it himself, equipment in hand, the kind of person who moves toward the thing everyone else is running from. He brings a spirit communication device with him, the kind that picks up and translates electromagnetic fluctuations into audible words. And what comes through on that device when he gets to the location stops him cold. Voices, asking him to come help, drawing him further in with exactly the kind of appeal that's hardest to ignore and easiest to follow into somewhere you shouldn't be. Watch.
Yo. Hello? Did somebody just walk through there? Hey, if you're there, I'm not here. I'm just doing some ghost hunting stuff. Somebody just walked right through there. She will not.
My name is Fred.
Your name is Fred? Hi, Fred. Many years ago. Did you guys see that or am I tripping? Say your name. My name is Chris. What's your name? What the fuck, bro? Okay. Help us talk? Okay. Holy shit. That door fucking opened. That door opened by itself. That door opened by itself. That fucking door opened by itself. What the fuck, bro? Oh no.
Hiding in the dark.
Hiding in the dark? The fucking door opened.
And then he runs. Whatever he sees in there overrides every instinct that brought him to that location in the first place. And Chris, a man who showed up to a skinwalker site on purpose with recording equipment at night, decides that whatever is happening is beyond what he came prepared for. Now here's what makes skinwalker encounters specifically so difficult to investigate and so hard to dismiss. In Navajo tradition, a skinwalker is not a ghost or a residual energy. It is an intelligent, shape-shifting entity that actively hunts, that learns the behavior and vocalizations of its targets, and that uses mimicry as a primary tool, replicating human voices, animal sounds, and cries of distress specifically to lure people toward it. The request to come help coming through that device fits that pattern almost precisely. Not a threat, not a warning, but an invitation wrapped in vulnerability. The exact kind of signal designed to pull someone deeper into isolated territory. What makes it worse is that skinwalkers across documented accounts are said to be most active at the threshold, doorways, tree lines, the edge of light and dark. And a door opening on its own, in that context, isn't a poltergeist moment. It's something marking a boundary and making clear it can cross it whenever it chooses. Chris came looking for a skinwalker. Based on what he ran from, it's worth asking whether it was already looking for him. So what do you think? Did Chris get closer to something real than any of his equipment was ever designed to handle? Or is there a less ancient explanation for what came through on that device? In this next clip, a security guard is doing his rounds inside a residential subdivision in Leon, Guanajuato. Gated community, empty houses. The kind of assignment where the biggest concern is usually staying awake through the quiet hours of the early morning. He's supposed to be completely alone. And then he starts hearing children. Not one child, not a sound that could be a television left on somewhere or an animal in the walls. Children, voices coming from inside an empty house during the early hours of the morning in a subdivision where no one should be present, let alone kids awake and making noise at that hour. He gets it on camera, and what he captured has been difficult for people to explain away. In paranormal research, the sound of children in locations where no children are present is one of the most consistently reported and most deeply unsettling categories of auditory phenomena, partly because of how specific and unmistakable the sound of a child's voice is, and partly because of what it implies about whatever is producing it. In Latin American folk tradition, disembodied children's voices, heard in empty buildings during the early hours, are frequently associated with the souls of children who died in or near that location, tied to the space and unable to move on, replaying fragments of a life that ended before it was finished. Others believe entities use the sound of children specifically because it triggers a protective instinct, drawing people toward the source rather than away from it, which in an empty subdivision in the middle of the night is exactly the kind of direction you don't want to be pulled. So what do you think? Was this guard hearing something that's been in that subdivision long before the houses were built? Or is there something in those empty rooms that learned a very long time ago exactly which sound gets people to come closer? In this next clip, Frank, a paranormal investigator who seeks out some of the most historically charged locations he can find, has made his way into an abandoned hospital with an incinerator room that already carries the kind of atmosphere that makes you want to keep your back to the wall. He's got a thermal camera with him, the kind that reads heat signatures rather than light. And what it picks up in that hallway is not something he was prepared to find. Watch.
Okay, and this is what the thermal camera sees. Can you peek at me one more time? Look at that. It just gets really blue, and that's a cold signature. Look at that. And then it goes away. Let's try it again. Here we go. There we go. Are you the one that she was talking about? I swear if I see an actual face peek out through there, I might not be as brave. Look. Look at that. That is literally the corner of the... Oh my God. Alright, I'm gonna walk up towards it. I wanna make sure, bring up my brightness. This hospital is amazing. I am definitely gonna be back here. I haven't even shown you guys the crematorium. The thing that gets me a little bit nervous about the crematorium is that, oh, it's sticky. This is what kind of sounded like the thumping sound. You can see how corroded this whole area is, and this is where it actually starts to stink a lot. And that's because of what they burnt down here as far as remains. But look at this. This is the cremation room. All right. So inside these things here, is where they would throw body parts, either children body parts or legs and arms, and they'll throw it into incineration. See? Incineration. And this is to see if it burnt up or not. Now the crazy thing is that there's ashes still inside. Look.
Those are actual ashes. Oh, that's a big spider there. Oh, the creepiest thing happened. I was putting this down and it happened off camera. But the moment I put the thermal, the K2 down, I hear a big boom. I'm just hoping it happens again. You hear it? Let me make sure it's on. You hear that? Hello? What the hell is that? I don't know if the camera's gonna pick it up. Hello? What the hell? Hello? Okay, that is creepy. Hello? Are you making noises? What the hell is that? Right now, you guys are inside. Listen. I'm trying to see if I could hear anything.
A thermal camera doesn't produce shapes from shadows or turn dust into figures. It reads temperature and temperature only, which is exactly what makes what Frank captured so difficult to dismiss. Something in that hallway is responding to him directly, and whatever it is, understands the difference between being watched and being ignored. In paranormal research, thermal anomalies that display humanoid form and respond to direct communication are considered some of the strongest indicators of an intelligent presence. Not residual energy running on a loop, but something that can hear and react in real time. Abandoned hospitals carry decades of fear, pain, and death concentrated within the same walls. The kind of accumulated weight that creates the exact conditions for a presence to form and sustain itself long after the building empties out. An incinerator room specifically carries a particular heaviness, given what those spaces were used for and what was lost inside them. Whatever Frank's thermal camera picked up in that hallway knew how to be seen and knew exactly when it wanted to disappear. So what do you think? Is this a former patient still wandering those corridors, or something that has been feeding off that building's energy for a very long time?